Now, did you guys hear about a year or maybe
Well-
2 years ago, an African-American lady, Pentecostal pastor in New Jersey, she said God gave her the number. Okay, thank you, sir. Which camera am I talking to? That camera over there? Okay.
No, I can't afford that.
Well, I want to thank you tonight for tuning into Living in Grace. Tonight, we're so glad to join with you one more time, another Wednesday evening. And I have with me today two very distinguished men that we have a subject to talk about, access to the American dream. First, I want to do tonight is to introduce our dear guest and also a friend of mine, Mr. Michael McMillan, who is the president and CEO of the Urban League. Mike is also, historically, people may not know, but was the youngest elected alderperson in the city of St. Louis, also the youngest elected license collector in the city of St. Louis, and in 2013, he became the president and CEO of the Urban League, which is doing an excellent job. So, Michael, we welcome you very much tonight. Also tonight, we have with us another friend of mine, Dr. Art McCoy. And Dr. McCoy is the superintendent of the Jennings School District. He's also, I believe, worked in the Rockwood School District and was also the former superintendent of the Ferguson Florissant School District, where he was doing an excellent job. But now he's moved on to Jennings, still doing a great job. And he also, as Mr. McMillan has a historical event, was the youngest certified educator in the state of Missouri. So I welcome you both tonight, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
I wanted to invite you to come because with COVID-19, we have witnessed a disparity in deaths being that of African Americans. And the reason that has been given is because of underlying conditions. And we all understand as we get older, people have different health issues, but in doing some research and talking to people, the underlying conditions are really the conditions for people who have not been treated. They haven't been going to the doctor, maybe they didn't have the money for a copay or whatever the reason, they were bearing it out. But then they were infected with COVID-19. The immune systems were low, and for some, unfortunately, they met their demise. So the question is, therefore, why was there a lack of access to be able to have enough money to pay your copay, to be able to feel you can afford to go to the doctor, have health insurance? And my conclusion, that's what I want to talk to you gentlemen today about, access in this country, there are two things that seem you need, and may not be the only things. One is education, and two is economic opportunities. And I want to talk to you all about that, because if we didn't have that problem, maybe the disparity wouldn't be so great.
Sure.
And moving forward from COVID-19, how do we help this younger generation and those in need to have a better life? So I want to first ask Dr. McCoy this question. Dr. McCoy, I want to ask you, how does education really open a door for a person to have a job that's above minimum wage and have a good living salary?
Thank you, Bishop. First, it's a pleasure to be with you, as always, in your wonderful congregation and to even see your beautiful edifice. It reminds me of all the great work and the great people that are there. And so I salute you, the Greater Grace family, and the extended family that's viewing online. So education, how does it help open doors? Well, first, it opens your mind. And I'm going to give you 3 E's. It enlightens you, and it opens your mind to possibilities that were never there, to facts and to truths about not only the world, but also the many systems, and then most importantly, yourself, because the truest education is character and a true understanding of yourself. And so that's number one, that's the enlightenment. Number two, it empowers you. When you get that certificate, when you get that diploma, when you get that, it ultimately empowers you to walk in with confidence, knowing that you are equipped, you are ready, and you are more than able to be more than a conqueror at anything, at any task. And so it empowers you to have that credential or that diploma. And then lastly, it engages you with a network of people. So for instance, the college you choose, it sends you with a network of people that you often can tap into for the rest of your life. The alumni associations and the professors. The high school you go to allows you to tap in for the rest of your life to a network of people that will engage in activities that help to make them better in life and to help make them money and to help accumulate more power to do more things. So education is the great equalizer, and then access to opportunities is an equity supersizer. That means that if you have access, it doesn't matter how far behind you were when you started, or how little money you had when you started, or how little you had of anything, it provides that equity to make it an even or more even playing field. So that's what the education process does, and the opportunities that come from it allows for people.
I have a question for you too, is that with education, a lot of times people hear education, some people say, oh, I just can't do that. I went to high school, got my diploma, I can't do college. Like I'm just gonna make it the best way I can. But does education also means not only for those that go to college, but those that go to trade schools or other schools, or would you expound upon the fact, what are the opportunities if you don't go to a 4-year college or university? What do you need to do in order to be prepared?
It's a great question. So let me be clear about this. It should not be only about college. It's about careers. And colleges were created to help people get careers. So you do not have to complete a college degree, but it is always good to get some college education. If you don't go to a college, there's always the community college, which is still a college, besides the 4-year university. And then you have the trade organizations, like the Carpenters Union, the Pipe Fitters Union. You have companies like Perrick and like Neaton House Construction, or like Clayco, which ultimately will help you get something called a micro credential. And so really that experience from the corporation, or that micro credential, like a CNA license, a pharmacy technician's license, an OSHA license in the construction space, a forklifting power tools license, a Microsoft license. All of those can be obtained within like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 1, 2, 3 months, 6 months in some cases, CNA licenses, and that does not require you to complete a degree. There are real paying, high paying jobs with salaries of $80,000, $90,000 an hour for jobs with those micro credentials. I have students getting paid $25 an hour as an 18-year-old at Perrick, Neaton House Construction, and Clayco with an OSHA micro credential, as well as power tools forklifting in the construction space. So the bottom line is, if you want to get paid, get the micro credentials and get the additional education. But if you've made it through this far through Corona, then you can persevere to make it through a formal education program or certificate program. It's just a matter of your attitude and your stick-to-itiveness and having that network around you to support you. You can do it.
Thank you. Mr. McMillan, I have a question for you, is that with the COVID-19, a lot of people were impacted. In the nation overall, for losing their jobs, furloughed about 36 million people. The Urban League, that a lot of people may not really understand about what the Urban League does, but I think it's been founded since 1910. You've had about 8 different national presidents here in St. Louis. You have been a champion in just really impacting people's life. Matter of fact, I believe in the last several weeks, last 10 weeks, the Urban League, you have just alone in distributing food, nearly 20,000 baskets of food. How long do you think the Urban League would be able to help in that arena in giving food?
Well, first of all, Bishop, I just want to say thank you for having Dr. McCoy and we appreciate you so much in terms of your leadership, your vision, what you do, what the members of this great church do in the community, the anchor that you have been. Just being here, quite frankly, reminds me of so many significant things that took place during the Ferguson movement and so many things that you do in terms of opening the church all the time to the community. So my hat's off to you and the congregation for all that you do all the time to help North St. Louis County specifically, but the entire region as well.
Thank you, sir.
You know, in terms of what we have been doing at the Urban League over the past 9 weeks, you know, we have been working in a crisis mode to deal with this overwhelming amount of need that we are all trying to fill, where we have received so many different calls from families that have been asking for food, for toiletries, for assistance with their rent, with their mortgage, with their gas bill, their electric bill, with transportation, with diapers, with formula, just basic survival needs. And so that's what made us create these large-scale distributions, because we knew that the traditional way that we would go about implementing things in our outreach centers was not going to be enough to deal with this overwhelming need. And since the average client that we represented had a household income of $15,000 or less before COVID, and then you look at the overwhelming economic devastation that has taken place in addition to the health devastation in the zip codes that we represent, primarily in North St. Louis City, North St. Louis County, East St. Louis, and St. Clair County, but others throughout the region and South City as well, then you realize that this effort has to be ongoing. So we look at it as a sprint and a marathon. We look at it as something that we will have to continue. So by the time we have the event this weekend at Jamestown Mall starting at 12, where we will once again serve 3,500 families, we will provide over $150,000 worth of food, toiletries, masks, gloves, and sanitizer to the community at that event this weekend. We will surpass having given away over $1 million worth of items in this past 9 weeks. And we look forward to doing this all the way up until the back-to-school season, where we were going to partner with Dr. McCoy, and we're going to partner with Dr. Adams and other superintendents to help students get whatever resources we can give them so that they can go back to school and have everything that they need, hopefully, good Lord willing, to go back at the end of August in a safe environment.
That is tremendous. That is tremendous. I take my hat off to you again, my friend, and to the Urban League. With that, the Urban League does so much. Urban League was, from my understanding, was developed to deal with the economics, housing, education, injustices that were affecting African American people in this nation. There are some programs you have, I think, that deal with this very thing, this gap of lack of education. You have one program called Save Your Sons. If you'd like to expound on some of the programs you have and that people can hear, that if they want to make a change in life, that the Urban League has created a lot of programs to do so.
Yeah, absolutely, Bishop. So we were created 110 years ago to deal with, at that time, the great migration of African Americans out of the South and escaping Jim Crow laws and trying to have a better life for themselves and their families, and to try to improve race relations in the United States. And then eventually the organization adopted a civil rights agenda and an empowerment agenda so that we could go beyond just basic needs of food, clothing, and shelter to economic empowerment. And so the Urban League, thankfully, has placed more African Americans in jobs than any other organization in the United States when you look at the 90+ affiliates that we have in every major metropolitan part of this country, in every major city. And so that's really the ultimate goal of the agency, is how do we give people the ability to take care of themselves and their families and be completely independent, whether that is getting a job, a GED, a scholarship, Head Start from our young people that we assist from 6 weeks old up to 5 years old, partnering with school districts like Dr. McCoy's on advocacy, trying to get the best resources that we can for our young people with the K through 12 education system, doing so many different things to try to empower our people and try to give them what they need so that they can become independent. As you just mentioned, obviously the past 9 weeks we've been focused on basic needs because so many people have been reduced to a survivalist mentality. How can we just get through this week? How can I just keep a roof over my head and keep some food on the table for my family and keep a gas and electric bill paid and get diapers and formula for my child? So we're working through that, but the ultimate goal, once we get out of this mode, will be empowerment. How do we give people the resources to get back to work, to be independent once again, and to be able to live the American dream that we all value and cherish so much?
Wow, thank you, sir. Dr. McCoy, going back to skilled trade jobs, it's, in this country, it seems that African Americans, there's a small number that are actually electricians, carpenters, plumbers, steel erectors, and so on. You being a superintendent in the Jennings School District, what advice would you give to other school districts when they see children may not want to go to a four-year school, but yet they're good with working with their hands? How would you direct them? Because back in the day, when I was in high school, they had the different classes for automotive and carpentry, which those things don't exist today. How would you go about to encourage a young person that this is a good living wage they could earn from this job?
Great question. So prior to COVID, I was definitely helping superintendents in the region, in the state, and throughout the country to understand that there's a pendulum shift that's occurring in education. And that is that every high school, and I want your parishioners to understand this and really commit to demanding this from their systems that their children are in. Every high school should offer free to the parents, using the tax base that you're already paying with your houses, free college classes, up to 60 college credit hours, so that the kid can get an associate's degree without 1 penny out of your pocket. We do that at Jennings. It should also offer at least 7 credentials, what we call IRCs, industry recognized credentials, without 1 penny out of your pocket, so that kids can have paid internships and apprenticeships before they leave high school. Every one of our high schoolers get that, and with the help of the Urban League and Mr. McMillan with the Workforce Development Act, he helps to place a good 100 to 200 of our kids every summer into such internships, and then the other corporations get the remainder of our students, so that every child gets an internship paid, gets up to 60 college credit hours towards an associate's degree. They also have to have entrepreneurship skills, because not everybody's going to go work for a company. Someone may start a church. Someone may start a business. Someone may start something that never was created before that we need right now. So every kid deserves entrepreneurship skills by middle school through high school. You should demand this from your schools. We start that in 6th grade for our kids. And so ultimately, in the last is every school must teach power skills. I don't call them soft skills, because learning how to show up on time, well-dressed, well-spoken, well-prepared is about giving you power, the power to overcome any poor reality and become prosperous. So every school should teach the power skills, should give the internships, should give the paid college classes, as well as entrepreneurship. And we've done that for the past 5 years, and we've had really 97% to 100% graduation, 100% for 4 years and 97% 1 year. And ultimately, every kid got each of those things. And so we've been teaching other superintendents how to do that. And the bottom line is these corporations want to hire high school, college-age kids, and 60, 70, and 80-year-olds. They want to hire them. I would encourage you as parishioners to go to a simple website, stl.works. This initiative is something that Kathy Osborne initiated with business leaders, and I was blessed to be the MC and educator leader on this whole initiative. And if you go to stl.works, it's a website, it will give you the roadmap for jobs in the trades, but also in the IT and hospitality industries, as well as places like Amazon and delivery service industries. And it will give you the salaries, it will give you the training resource that's often free, that's looking for you to have people go from any age range, from 16 to 66. And so STL.works is what I'm telling educators, but also citizens who are looking for opportunities.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. That's a lot of great information. Now, I want to ask this question, Mr. McMillan. With this 21st century, my father came to St. Louis, I believe it was in the 40s, and he worked for a company called Skull and Steel Company. There was Skull and Steel Company, Missouri Rolling Mills, Century Foundry, which is now going under a cosmetic change, Granite City Steel, all these, and then there were General Motors, there was Ford. This was a manufacturing city at one time. And people could come with very little education. My father went to the 3rd grade, and that was all the education he had, even though he advocated to his children get a good education. Now we're in a time where manufacturing, where people were so comfortable with the fact that if I get here, I'm in the union, I stay here, I can make so much money, but those days are gone now. What would you recommend to a young person or to someone in their 30s, 40s, 50s, whatsoever, saying, no, I really need a better life, I need a better job? What industry should they look at?
Well, you know, Bishop, you're right. Sadly, the manufacturing industries that you referenced in many cases will never come back the way
Right.
they were. And I think really if you go back to the comment that Dr. McCoy made earlier, there are a number of certifications and things that you can do to actually get a job that has good pay and good benefits attached to it that does not necessarily involve getting a 4-year degree.
Right.
So whether that is going to Rankin Technical College or whether that is getting the certification that Dr. McCoy mentioned in terms of you being someone that can operate a forklift or a truck driver or a carpenter or a plumber. I mean, there are some carpenters and plumbers that between their regular job and their overtime and extra clients that make more than the governor of the state of Missouri or the mayor of the city of St. Louis. But in many ways, we have become so accustomed to just pushing people to get a 4-year degree that we have not paid enough attention and given enough respect to some of these trades and some of these other ways that people can make a living and have a very good salary, have consistent work, have good benefits attached to them, and the ability to be completely economically independent. I have never met a good plumber who did not have work. I've never met a good carpenter who did not have work. I never met a good pharmacist who did not have work. And so there are so many different things that a person can do to actually make sure that they have the qualifications as you look at a new economy. And obviously, one of the things that all of us literally need desperately are good IT people. So pushing more African Americans into the IT industry is something that will benefit all of us because we're very underrepresented in that community. So there are a number of different ways that individuals can get the type of training, education, and certification to be able to take care of themselves that don't involve the traditional manufacturing economy because, quite frankly, these companies have become so accustomed to shipping those jobs overseas into countries where they can get by paying much less with all of the labor costs. So I don't think those jobs will ever come back, and we have to reinvent ourselves, and there are going to be a lot of people that are going to have to reinvent themselves following COVID. because sadly, a lot of the jobs that were there are not going to be there anymore. They are not going to have companies to go back to, and some of the workforce levels that were at this level won't be there. They may be here now. And we have to adjust with the times and evolve and make sure that we continue to serve that. And I know Dr. McCoy does that in terms of how he places his students into positions, and we work together on that all the time. And at the Urban League, we have to evolve and do that as well. Even now, we're doing virtual hiring fairs, and we're doing virtual counseling and virtual placements because people still need jobs, and we can't have large-scale job fairs like we once did. And those were ways that you could get a lot of people jobs very quickly, but that's not an option right now. But that doesn't mean that we need to stop working. We need to keep working, reinvent ourselves, change with the times, and evolve.
Thank you. And you lead me to something I want to talk to for you both to address, is that we also seem to be very much underrepresented when it comes to entrepreneurship. One thing about a business owner, the last time I checked, they normally don't lay themselves off. So they're not going to furlough themselves. But yet there tend to be a challenge in the African American community to, as was done years ago, to get involved in owning your own business and be successful. Is there anything you guys like to say to address that issue? And how could we help somebody to become an entrepreneur?
Well, I'll start off, and I know
Okay.
Dr. McCoy works on this all the time in terms of trying to give people the option to not only get careers, but also be their own boss.
Right.
And as you said, who would lay themselves off?
Right.
No one, right? So we all want to continue to be empowered economically.
Right.
You know, I would say that just as a St. Louisan in general, that really all of us, citizens, leaders, servant leaders, we all need to make a renewed commitment to empower, seek out, and support African American owned businesses personally and professionally, and continuously do that because, quite frankly, we are not where we should be as a community. When you look at having almost 500,000 African Americans in the city, the county, East St. Louis, and the metropolitan region, we don't have enough successful businesses that we can point to where we can see the economic vitality of not only just the African American community, but the broader community. We have Worldwide Technology, of course, as the #1 African American business in the history of the United States. We have the #1 African American newspaper in the country in the form of the St. Louis American. And we have a number of different companies in the construction business, in the architectural business, and others. But there need to be more. You know, we are spending money every single day. And we have to consciously think about how we spend our personal money, and for those of us that have professional budgets, how do we spend those funds with companies and with professionals, with lawyers, with accountants, with stockbrokers, with tax preparation consultants, in so many different ways. How do we empower each other, and how do we not hold each other to some unrealistic level of commitment? I have never heard another race of people say, I am a Chinese person. I went to a Chinese business. That Chinese business did not do me right. I will never go to another Chinese business in my life. But we as a people have said that on numerous occasions. I've heard that my whole life. And so we have to learn to get beyond that type of mentality, and we have to support and empower each other and encourage young people to do that, because we know that we were not born with wealth that we were able to inherit from someone. We were not just gifted positions because of our last name. We don't have the ability to just walk in any bank and get a line of credit based on who we know, who we went to high school with, who we went to this club with, and who we went to whatever organization affiliation with that had that kind of economic power and that kind of economic network. So we know it's going to be harder for us. It always has been and it always will be. But we need to empower each other and support each other in a way that will then give the ability in the community for us to be able to have businesses that we will all be proud of and want to support and want to hold up to the broader community.
Thank you. Dr. McCoy.
Yeah, I want to play with your audience. I want to play with your audience for a second. So I'm a card-carrying Pentecostal, fire-baptized, water-baptized, tongue-speaking, holy rolling, organ playing, and preached in that pulpit a funeral and a sermon before Mike Brown passed to say, who is your Emmett Till? What would you do if you had that situation? Months before we had to march. But the thing we don't do well as Pentecostals is make sure that we are people about business. And that's the lacking piece. It's been the lacking piece in our church, collectively, as far as the books being open or as far as making sure that we are people about business. And so I really have to drive this home. We are beautiful. Black people are beautiful, and we're brilliant. And we're earning and making other people millionaires and billionaires with our brilliance and beauty. So you, the viewing audience, the listening person, has to understand that you have value. When you show up somewhere, when you speak somewhere, there's a dollar associated to your time. If you think that your time isn't worth a dollar, then you are definitely not being about business and entrepreneurship. We all, as Black people, have had a hustle. But sometimes we've been hustled within the hustle where we will do something and it's worth way more than we've gotten back. More money, more recognition, more praise, more recommendations. And so being about entrepreneurship has to start in the homes as well as the churches and our conversations and of course the schools. I would encourage you to get a book called The Memo. It's just called The Memo. M-E-M-O. It's by John Hope Franklin. And ultimately, it tells you about how we as Black people have often not gotten the memo, that our time has money, our actions have money, our thoughts have money, and our labor has money. And if you say, hey, I'm going to be my own consultant and make that action, that word, that poem that you gave at even, let's say, an Easter Sunday, why not have that poem copyrighted and put it on the internet and then ultimately have 10 or 20 and charge people? Instead of putting posts on Facebook, realize that every post on Facebook is you creating a page or a chapter of your own book that you could be getting paid for. But when you put it on Facebook, it gets their people paid, their advertisers paid. So it takes a mind shift. You have to be renewed by the thinking of your mind to understand first and foremost that you have value, your actions and time has a money dollar value assigned to it, and start to look for opportunities to say to people, if you really do care and want me to say that, do that, write that, speak that, preach that, play that on the organ, then I'm worth $1. And even if they don't give you the dollar, you can say that my service was gifted to you and then start to accumulate a value to it and have even some less taxes that you ultimately could pay from an accumulation of freely giving away your talent. Then you're thinking like an entrepreneur because your time really has value if you're going to pay less taxes because you gave to someone something. Let me say the second part. I'm not about just words, but about substance. And the substance is this. As the superintendent, I've created in my organization several things that's not in the lane of schooling. I mean, we have 2 grocery store food hubs that we own and operate and run, which is how we gave away 60,000 pounds of food and the largest 100,000 pounds and dollars of food for every Friday for the past, not just 10 weeks of COVID, but for the past 7 years, really. 5 that I've been there, but their grocery store hubs have been just created last year from a $100,000 donation from value that Bear saw of giving food to people in order to make sure that they have daily food before COVID. We have 2 homeless shelters that we own and operate and give people clothes, food, roof over their head, and parents, because it has value to the St. Louis County And so we run the homeless time and point checks every quarter, where we go out looking for people on the streets, and especially children, to count how many there are. We lead that as Jennings because that's the entrepreneurial spirit of a vision of a person who sees that some action has value. So then we get extra money from the St. Louis County for that. We have 2 hospitals that we own and operate. One is the CareSTL Myrtle Hilliard David, that we actually partner with them. They own it, and we're co-partners, and it's the only dental clinic in a school in the state of Missouri. And they also have their own COVID testing site on Fairview Elementary School so that we can get our employees and parents and students tested in real time. We also have the Spot Clinic, which is giving females free feminine products from every feminine product that you know that you need. Even during this time, they're giving it away. And so what that is entrepreneurship in action in the midst of a government entity. Because the difference between, what I do and what Mr. McMillan does is, we have money that comes from the tax base. So it's not something that I have to do to go raise. And so that's entrepreneurship when you go in that lane. Now, Mr. McMillan does it like nobody does it. He does it as well and as big as anybody, and he raises significant funds. And he does it because of empowerment, like he said. And then he has to go out and show that value and say, hey, write that $1 million check. And they do, because of the entrepreneurial spirit in which he creates programs within the Urban League. And so I say all that to say that we are no different than you. That just like we can entrepreneurially create something that's in our lane or out of our lane, you have that same power. Just find that burning in your gut of what God won't let just stay alone and be let alone without you getting in it and putting your foot in it, and make it change. Put your foot in it, make it change. And so that's my entrepreneurship answer to you. It's sitting right there, it's burning in your spirit. Get up and do something.
Yes, sir.
I totally agree with everything that Dr. McCoy said, as always. But one thing that I failed to mention that I think is very key for this in terms of all of us as individuals is also the financial literacy and financial empowerment.
Right.
Because, just when I was a little kid, I couldn't understand why my grandmother and my mother would never let me touch 10% of whatever I got from them in the form of allowance. And it used to aggravate me so much when I wanted to buy a toy or some clothes or something really flashy and exciting that a little child would want. And I never understood that, and it irritated me until I got to be an adult and understood the importance of pay yourself first. Set 10% aside to save for the future. And also, of course, set 10% aside for the church and charities and other things that you want to support to empower institutions in the community that empower you and your people. And the other thing, quite frankly, that we have to do, I think, as a community is fight the instinct to live beyond our means. All of us love wonderful, flashy, beautiful, glamorous things. But unfortunately, sadly, as a minority group, we have been trained in a very consumer-driven mindset where we are one of the greatest groups of consumers the world has ever seen. That Dr. McCoy said we are empowering people to become millionaires and billionaires that we will never, ever meet. We will never meet Donatella Versace, Dolce & Gabbana, the head of Fendi, the head of Louis Vuitton, Michael Kors, or any of these people. But we are wearing their items each and every day with pride. How about saving some of that money and just wearing a normal outfit? As I heard once before, I would rather have $5,000 in cash in a clear paper bag than to have a $5,000 purse with no money in it, period, from a speaker once that we brought to our Martin Luther King program. Because we need to empower ourselves by living beneath our means, or at least at our means, and not going into debt. Not spending an enormous amount of our income on debt payments for things that we really couldn't afford, but we wanted to try to keep up with the Joneses. How we can then empower each other to live beneath our means, save, and so that then when you have that great entrepreneurial idea, you have some capital to then begin your own business. Start it out of your home and do something that will then begin to build wealth for you and your family.
All I can say is, wow.
Amen, brother.
And what you're saying is true, because let me ask you this question. And I hope the viewers are really listening to this conversation tonight, because this is life-changing. Years ago, I can't remember exactly what, it was 19, maybe 20 so, in the state of Oklahoma. There was the Black Wall Street. And the Black Wall Street was prospering tremendously because they were doing one thing: they were circulating that dollar within their community. We in this country, as African Americans, spend about $1.2 trillion a year or so, and it is stated that our dollar does not turn over, not even one time. And Mr. McMillan, you made a statement, I think it's something everybody needs to take time to really pay attention to. We would not do business with people of our color because one person did us wrong. But in order to change what COVID is exposing, the reason why there's such a demise of people dying because of the lack of funds for doctors, copay, no access, if we could just simply change the way we do business, as you said, pay ourselves first, and be able to look into how to do more collaborating, bordering, so we could get to the next place, but watch our life grow. I believe it's Delmar Gardens here in town, started by 2 Jewish people. One was a survivor of the Holocaust. And in their synagogue, there was an elderly couple that was sick, had no family, and they took them in. That was the beginning of the development of Delmar Gardens, which we see today, the growth of it. And what I'm asking is this: to encourage people that you could take something real small, but if you have a plan, if you're consistent, if you're going to be dutiful in your work, you can watch it grow. As you said, economically, manage your money well, watch it keep growing. Do you want to speak to that, if I'm making any sense here?
Well, absolutely. And so Dr. McCoy and I have the pleasure of frequently being around and getting the opportunity to hear from David Stewart.
Right.
And as you know, after watching him and reading his book and hearing his story, he will talk about how his car was repossessed right there in front of him in his own office. And so he talks about all of the trials and tribulations that he went through, but he persevered. And he kept pushing, and he kept working, and he knew that no one would outwork him in terms of his work ethic and what he was putting forth. So I think when you look at, our community and you look at the brilliance, as Dr. McCoy mentioned, that is within each of us to get out into the community and to express our value and to demand our value and to support each other in terms of what we are doing, and especially those of us in leadership. I know Dr. McCoy has done this since he has been the superintendent in terms of expanding the number of African American companies that are vendors of the school district. And at the Urban League, obviously, we've been pushing for that in St. Louis for 102 years, and we try to do that with our own vendors of who we spend money with. And our largest contractors are African Americans. And as you know, just down the street, when we built the Ferguson building,
Yes.
we said we are going to find the best, the brightest, the most competent, qualified, capable African Americans in the construction business, from the design of this building all the way to opening it. And we ended up with over 80% African American companies that actually built that building. And the only other percentage that wasn't African American was because there was no one in the industry that did that particular type of work. And so those are the unique things that I think all of us need to do when given the opportunity to be in leadership and control budgets and try to push for progress and try to make sure that we get a seat at the table. None of us are perfect in what we do, but we need to constantly strive to do more and to create more access and to create more empowerment for each other, because sadly, as we all know, When you deal with Willie Lynch, you deal with the chains and images of psychological slavery that we have all been subject to our entire lives. Sadly, we are a group of people that has been trained to distrust each other in the form of business. And we have to get beyond that. We have to unlearn what we have learned. And we have to learn to trust and love and support each other and try to push for each other's progress. And that your success and Dr. McCoy's success and all of our other leaders in this community, your success is my success. And I should try to push for you to be a success and this church to be successful and grow and prosper and the school district and the rest. And that we should uplift each other and try to support each other, whether it's business, whether it's religion, whether it's education, or whatever the field is, because only by working together will we be better than what we are separately.
Yes, sir. Dr. McCoy, anything you want to say, sir? Because if not, I got a question for you.
Yeah, Mike hit it all, you know, so, and I hate being an echo chamber. I usually, as a professional speaker, never repeat what somebody says, so I got to say he left a little bit of bone on there, a little bit of bone, because he took all the meat. So I'm just gonna give it in a poetic way and say, don't let your outgo exceed your income, because then your upkeep will become your downfall. That's rule number one. And it was already said, if your outgo exceeds your income, then your upkeep on your lifestyle will become your downfall. And then he said something else that I have to play on, and that is, he said, you know, don't try to live up to the Joneses. And so I really want to play on that because you are Bishop Jones, and we got another Jones like Michael Jones, and so forth. And the bottom line is, you all are the standard. And so don't try to get what they got except for the knowledge and the wisdom that they got. And then stand on that wisdom in order to lift yourself up, and the things shall follow. So there's a few Christian principles to say on that. And I know David would say these right now, because we both, as Michael Miller said, we spend a lot of time with them and we're close. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God and his righteousness, then all these things shall be added. So you as church people, you know that. But what does that mean? So we talk about giving the tithe because God gets the first 10th off of the fruits of your labor. Then you need to understand that that principle applies to you. That's why we say take that second 10th and that goes to you. It's still a part of the 10th, but ultimately give God his and then give yours. Give you yours because you deserve that. Now, what are you doing? We say this all the time in the church, but people don't think about it from a business lens. Only what you do for Christ will last. We say it all the time. So we're already thinking about investing in that eternal reward of having God say, well done. Well, just like we are faithful to that, you need to be just as faithful to the business of investing in the long term for your children's children. Right. So that when you do get stuff, get a house because the value appreciates, because land is God's money and land goes up in value. God's money always goes up. So if you get land, which includes a house, it's going to go up in value. If you get gold right now is 10 times more valuable today than it was when I bought that same gold ring from my wife 25 years ago when we got married. And that thing will sell for 10 times what I paid for it because that's God's money. It's gold. It's a precious jewel. Diamonds, silver. Those things accumulate. Whereas dollar bills is paper. And its value is dependent upon our politics, how many wars we fight, how much debt we took out, $2 trillion just a few weeks ago. And so that value is going up and down, up and down. You see the oil prices going up and down because of political deals. But the point is, when you think about only what you do for Christ will last, the same principle applies towards investing in yourself for the long term and your children's children. Getting some of God's money, which is like gold and like land and like silver, things like that. That's how entrepreneurs and business people think. And I just say, you know, 3 things when COVID occurred. The stock market went and took a plummet. It tumbled and it went down. And I told some close people, about 30 of them, and I did some town hall meetings. I said, here's how billionaires think, and here's how wealthy people make money. There are 4 ways to make money when this happens. You can leverage your debt. My dad, who's 87, just like your dad, Bishop Jones, who dropped out of high school, my dad did too. But the bottom line is my dad ended up having a $2 million facility that is still there. He's retired, doesn't have to work so far. He's doing well, praise the Lord, because he saw these principles. If you have paid your bills on time, then you have some capacity to get a loan. And when things are in a recession, you can get loans at lower rates and then leverage that debt to invest in yourself, your business, your idea that you know is going to happen. You know you can cook, so you're going to do a business. You know you can make some clothes, or you can make something happen. You know you're good at serving people, so you're going to serve them like a first responder in a COVID situation when everybody else is hiding and just getting stuff delivered to them. You're going to create your own Amazon. And so leverage your debt. Those are people who are going to make some millions, who have an idea, a gift, and then they have paid their bills on time, have a good enough credit score to leverage their debt. That is the story of David Stewart. He got a loan for $250 and then got a loan for $1 million to start a business called Worldwide with 4 employees, but I'm worldwide. That vision of being big, but I got 4 employees, but it's still worldwide off of loans. His car gets repossessed because the vision didn't come to fruition, but he's still working it because he knows it's in the spirit, leveraging his debt. And now he's a $5 billionaire. He's got $5 billion. He's got enough money to, on Black Friday, buy everybody in the United States a $20 gift and still have another couple millionaires left, be a millionaire still. I mean, that happens off of those principles that were just said. But we got to be about it. We got to talk more about it and do more about it.
Thank you. I got just a couple of minutes. I'm going to ask you just one last question. I think it's regarding to education. The community colleges. Right now, I believe in St. Louis community colleges, the enrollment is down. Young people or whoever are not going. Would you say the community college, though, is actually one of the best kept tools as a person wanting to achieve a level of higher education because of the price and the services they offer, or what would you say?
It's a great value to the dollar. Since we talk about value in dollars, I mean,
right.
You can get credit hours from there for $120. And that same course will cost $1,000 from the 4-year institutions, or $3,000 from, let's say, WashU. So it's a great value for the dollar. And then you can get a certificate without even having to go through a bunch of classes that lead you to a path for a life career wage, living wage. And so it's a great value. It's a hidden gem. Take advantage of it if that's the path that you feel you're called to make. But the key to education is knowing yourself. Then when you know yourself, you can operate in your gift. And then every college course you take just helps build your gift. But if you try to do something that's not your gift, you can take all the college classes that Princeton, Yale, Harvard has, and you can still suck at it because that's not your gift. So learn who you are, learn your gift, meditate on your skills, and then have those things add to it. And people, your gift will make room for you. That's the word.
Mike, anything you want to say to that?
I totally agree. Community college is a best kept secret, and it has been a pathway for so many individuals that did not have the economic capacity to go to a 4-year university, or even, as Dr. McCoy mentioned, you could go there, get your associate's degree, and then transfer into a 4-year university, transfer all of those classes at a much, much cheaper rate, and then get a degree. Because it has been really something that, quite frankly, many of our clients have utilized in terms of empowering themselves and empowering their families, ultimately with getting great jobs and great economic opportunity.
Thank you. To our dear viewers for this evening, I hope you really got something from this discussion. Access to the American dream. COVID-19 made us aware that there's more problems than just simply the virus. And we as a community need to really pay attention to what's going on and make some serious decisions about how we would change the way we live and how to make life better for us by having access. Tonight we talked about only 2 things. I got a lot more questions to ask these two men, but we're out of time. One is education. Never say you can't learn. The question is, what is your talents? What are your skills? What do you like to do? Because you're not a doctor, you're not a lawyer, don't look down upon yourself. Maybe it's being an engineer. Maybe it's not being an engineer. Maybe it's a carpenter, whatever. You find what fits you. And I guarantee you, you'll find something that not only you can just have for a day, but you could live by. And then economics. Mr. McMillan at the Urban League, I encourage you, if you have some questions, they have programs on top of programs. And he didn't ask me to say this, but I'm going to tell you right now. 'Cause a lot of people don't really know what the Urban League have done for years. Not because of them, we just don't talk about it. Join the Urban League. I believe it's $50 for a general membership, $100, is that correct, for the next level?
Yes, exactly.
And $250 to be a partner. And join it, supply, because it's a place a lot of people turn to for help. But also understand, you could take something as simple as a cookie, make the best cookie you make, put it in some boxes, and sell it, and you're in business, my friend. Let us get beyond COVID-19 by having assets. Now, my last thing I'm gonna do for you is say a prayer for you at this time. Dear God, in the name of Jesus, I thank you for each and every one that is listening tonight. Bless their lives, Lord. There are some that are listening that may have been furloughed. Lord, we encourage them to know the furlough does not determine their end, but it has simply become a door of opportunity that they may succeed at a new level. Bless, oh God, our young people and all that are looking for better jobs and meet the needs, God, economically, as we will learn the principles how we are able to earn a living for ourselves. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. God bless you. Tune in Sunday, 8 a.m. and 10:30. We live stream right here from Greater Grace Church. God bless. Love you to life.